for me to bring my daughter with me today because that's what we're here for. We're here for that next generation.
Tonight, the second annual Women's March took place across the country and the world.
We are the most oppressed population in Canada is Indigenous women, and we need to give voice.
The inquiry into missing and murdered women and girls moves to Yellowknife this week, and people there hope the inquiry can stay on track.
The thing that really got me excited about writing the book was that I kept thinking, like, what do stars become when they hit the ground?
And we meet Blackfoot Dene author Gitz Crazyboy. His first book, The Secret of the Stars, is getting rave reviews and is a top seller on Amazon. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Saturday marked the second annual Women's March, an event inspired by opposition to Donald Trump's election. It has now grown into an international movement. APTN's Justin Brake reports.
Welcome to unceded Mi'kmaq territory. We accept all iterations of the feminine.
As with all social movements, the Women's March too has its growing pains. In Halifax, a separate march took place, called Walk the Talk, for trans and two-spirit women and Black and Indigenous women. Jade Byard Peak, a Black and Mi'kmaq two-spirit trans woman, was the target of what she and other organizers called racist and transphobic comments on the Halifax Women's March Facebook page. Those comments were eventually deleted by page administrators, but Byard Peak says they still had an impact.
There are very big racist, transphobic women in the community who are trying to divide this movement.
Who are we?
She says trans women were called men and Indigenous women were referred to as alcoholics, and that people don't realize trans and non-binary identities were known to be traditionally accepted in Mi'kmaq and other Indigenous cultures.
To come forward and publicly shame people and target people on the internet, on social media, point people out, it's beyond misgendering, but inciting violence upon folks. We were like, this is not okay.
We had to provide a safe space. We had to make sure that our sisters and each other were safe and well taken care of, and also like spiritually nurtured, because those hateful comments, they were very potent. They were very destructive, and we had to bring life back to our sisters.
While some people called the spin-off march divisive, Peak says that wasn't the intention.
It's to let folks know as an educational point, as a loving point, that we see this movement in being a movement, but we don't want inclusivity. That's not the word. Inclusiveness is just a buzzword. We need intersectionality, and I think that is what we're trying to change. You know, you can't just change language overnight, but you can change compassion and have compassion. You just got to listen first. Yeah.
They gonna let nobody turn me around.
Following both marches, organizers posted on social media that they learned to center the issues of transphobia, colonialism, racism, and patriarchy in their efforts, and that Black and Indigenous people and trans women are working hard to build a truly intersectional movement. Justin Brake, APTN National News, Halifax.
There were nearly 250 women's marches across the country and the world, including in Vancouver. Almost 5,000 people braved the pouring rain to take to the streets. The focus for this year's march in BC was on basic rights, not just for women, but for everyone and for all generations. Rihanna Bennett and her daughter were there for the second time.
It's really important for me to bring my daughter with me today because that's what we're here for. We're here for that next generation. We're here to make the life easy and more equitable for her.
Multiple groups have been critical of the capabilities of the MMIWG inquiry commissioners. Hearings are in Yellowknife this week, and families in the NWT say they hope the focus can shift back to those testifying. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs has more.
We are the most oppressed population in Canada is Indigenous women, and we need to give voice.
MMIWG commissioners will hear 30-plus cases in Yellowknife this week. Sandra Faye Lockhart is one of them.
I think you have to go. You need to step down.
In the past few weeks, all eyes have been on the inquiry's leadership, with numerous Indigenous organizations asking for commissioners to step down. Hearings were originally scheduled in Yellowknife for December, but were delayed. Lockhart says she is concerned that the increased focus on commissioners comes at the family's expense.
They're putting the focus on taking the commissioners down. Well, that's the height of how much oppression there is, because these are Indigenous women that are being asked to be taken down, so they are being targeted as well.
She says the inquiry will have to recognize how a lack of self-determination with government-run healthcare, education, and social services puts the Indigenous people in the NWT at a disadvantage.
Things have to have more, not only an Indigenous perspective, it has to have a traditionalist perspective as well.
An opening ceremony and community dinner will take place tonight, followed by meetings January 23rd, 24th, and 25th. According to a media statement, the inquiry is capable of taking on up to 30 walk-in cases for those who choose to register that day. Lockhart says she hopes that despite criticism of the inquiry, families and survivors come forward.
Although whether they're private or public, that they're talking to Justin Trudeau. They're not talking to the commissioners. The commissioners are the data gatherers. And yeah, there's all kinds of breakdowns. But does that surprise you? I mean, anything to paint, anything that's being done by Indigenous people, especially for Indigenous women, let's look for every bloody flaw that can be there to destroy it, right?
Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Youth leaders hoping to provide solutions to some serious issues gathered in Ottawa today using the hashtag Hope Forum. APTN's Annette Francis tells us why.
The First National Hope Forum brings together First Nations, Métis, and Inuit youth from across the country. 19-year-old Caroline Nukasak comes from Labrador. She says it's time to act and talk to bring hope to Inuit youth.
Suicide is a burden, and it's like a big thing, it's serious, but it affects like how we think of ourselves and how we think of our communities. So I think, yeah, how identity and how you identify and trying to, like, what I wish is like we can identify as being strong people and stuff. But in my region, I see that people look at identity in a certain way because of it.
Tunchide Redfurs is a co-founder of this forum. For the past 2 days, over 70 youth came together and engaged in open discussions about suicide while exploring solutions.
So by opening up and encouraging youth and saying it's okay to talk about your experiences, your feelings, your ideations, we're normalizing that conversation. We're denormalizing suicide and normalizing that we can talk about these issues so that we can find supports and resources available for them.
This afternoon, they were joined by the Minister of Indigenous Services for a national roundtable session. The forum also opened up on social media through a partnership with Facebook. It began with a promise from Minister Philpott to listen to their concerns and ideas.
Today, I can't promise that I can follow through on all of them, but I can promise to listen to all of them, to use them, to help inform us, to be able to do what's necessary in this country, to be able to allow the promise of you to be fulfilled, the promise of Indigenous youth, the first peoples of this country, to be able to be fulfilled in a way that will enrich the entire country.
Following 2 hours of discussion, the session ended with a promise from Minister Philpott to follow up on their suggestions and that she would seek their help in policy development. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Marijuana dispensaries are opening up on First Nations across the country, and they're also being raided. More on that coming up after the break. Here's a look at Tuesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. A snow-rain mix and 7 above in Halifax, +3 in snow in Charlottetown. Sunny and 17 below in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Nain. Snow across much of Quebec, -13 in Chibougamau, -9 in Saguenay, +5 in Windsor, Sarnia, and London. Rain and 4 above in Ottawa. Sunny and -11 in Thunder Bay, -13 in Wawa and Timmins. In northern Manitoba, a sunny day in Churchill with a high of -23, -6 in Winnipeg, -5 in Brandon, -4 in Dauphin. Over to Saskatchewan, 0s in Swift Current and Regina, -3 in Saskatoon, -20 in Stony Rapids on Tuesday, -17 in Uranium City. Welcome back. Cannabis dispensaries are opening up on First Nations across the country. Each community is addressing marijuana sales differently. Some are not happy to have illegal drugs of any kind. Beverly Andrews has more on this issue.
Earlier this month, the Six Nations Police Service raided a cannabis dispensary south of Toronto. Jeff Henhock, the owner of Green Health for Six, was arrested along with 3 others.
We're a green health store. We provide medical cannabis, providing a safe, clean product to people in need of a medicine that chooses to take that path of medicine. We provide a safe medicine, safe tested product for anybody who wishes to choose cannabis here at Six Nations.
But the dispensary is not a licensed medical dispensary, so under current law, it's still an illegal shop.
They should wait until they're dealing with a legal commodity. Again, right now, regardless of the fact that, and I'm not debating with anybody the medicinal benefits of marijuana. And obviously we all know that in a few months it's going to be legal, but right now it's not.
Green Health for Six says they don't distinguish between medical and recreational users, but say they want to provide an alternative to pharmaceutical drugs.
We are trying to offer a medicinal plant-based medicine here to counter and fight the opiate addiction. The number of narcotics that are in our community here on Six Nations is ridiculous.
Last February, the community held a meeting to discuss the drug situation.
It was very clear from the community members that attended that what they expected from their police service was basically zero tolerance for any illegal drugs in the community. And nobody took the stand, or nobody spoke on marijuana being an exemption to that.
The Six Nations elected band council was not available for an on-camera interview, but in an email stated, "Until federal legislative amendments have been enacted to legalize and regulate the use and sale of cannabis, Six Nations elected council remains of the position that cannabis is a controlled substance. As such, in the absence of applicable Six Nations laws and regulations, the elected council considers cannabis subject to the Controlled Drug and Substances Act. The council is establishing a task force to develop policy in preparation for the legalization of cannabis."
And other territories, their band councils are embracing it and kind of more or less saying it's a gray area that they're not going to touch. I think that our band council should at least work with us or put out a mandate or something.
But in the meantime, it's clear the non-licensed sale of cannabis is not welcome here. Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Six Nations.
A Blackfoot Dene author says his first novel has been more successful than he could have ever imagined. The book made Amazon's top 10 bestsellers in Native American literature. Tamara Pimentel met up with Gitz Crazyboy at his first book signing in Calgary.
The Secret of the Stars is a story of a young man's journey to find 4 fallen stars. He's instructed by dreams and spirits to find the stars, all of which hold a secret about life.
The thing that really got me excited about writing the book was that I kept thinking, like, what do stars become when they hit the ground? Like, what do they become? And that was the thing. Are they moments? Are they people? Are they places?
It's written by Dene Blackfoot author Gitz Crazyboy. His story is a mix of both fiction and nonfiction, leaving some of his own life experiences a mystery.
I have family that constantly asks, like, what is real and what isn't, and I'm never going to tell them. They know that some of the things happen to me in this book, but there's a lot of things that they don't know about my life. And like I said, it's always going to be a mystery. I'll never tell them. The character could be almost anybody. He doesn't have a name. And that's so you could place yourself in their shoes as they're traveling throughout this journey.
A journey Gitz Crazyboy thought would mainly engage a young Aboriginal audience. But at his first signing through Chapters and Chat book club, Crazyboy heard from non-Indigenous readers and how it connected with them as well.
It really caught me off guard that they could relate to it. And we're totally two different types of people, come from different backgrounds, different cultural viewpoints, different appreciations of the world. But they really liked the book, and it was really interesting and weird for me.
Chapters and Chat focuses on Indigenous issues and storytelling, bridging the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous.
Most people come armed with an idea or opinion and about us, and they just want to see how it gets challenged but doesn't ever get changed. And the people that were there, they really seemed like they wanted to take all of it in and abandon the lens and how they were conditioned from birth to perceive us here, to look at us, to judge us.
Crazyboy says his goal is for his novel to become an audiobook, narrated by his mother in the Blackfoot language, and to continue preserving his culture. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Calgary.
Great work, Gitz. Congrats on the success. Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come.
Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. -12 in High Level, -9 in Fort McMurray. Sunny skies and +5 in Medicine Hat, +2 in Lethbridge. A wet day on the west coast, +8 in Victoria and Port Hardy, 6 above in Vancouver. Rain and 6 in Prince Rupert, 0 in Prince George, -5 in Fort St. John. In Yukon, -23 in Rock River and Old Crow. Over to NWT, -18 in Fort Simpson and Yellowknife, -21 in Norman Wells, -18 in Sax Harbor, 1 degree cooler in Polituck. A really chilly day in Nunavut, -32 in Whale Cove and Baker Lake, -33 in Cambridge Bay, 33 below in Joe Haven, -30 on Tuesday in Resolute.
Welcome back. The tiny community of Tumala on the New South Wales-Queensland border has had more than its fair share of tragedy and hardship. But tonight we have a positive story to share. It's from National Indigenous Television in Australia.
Tumala's problems have been well documented, but it's fighting back through footy, culture and energised youth.
We can see that a lot of our youth, and not just our youth, but our communities in general, due to colonisation, walking around a bit lost, and we can see that's because of loss of culture and loss of our language, and in particular our law, and in Gamilaroi language we call that Diria Gummels.
It is good for them to learn the language. We try and retrieve our language, through these young ones now, because it was all taken from them.
Buddy Hipai, now Yibai Dinawan, was once a wild child, but now he's helping the youth of Tumala and Bogabilla reconnect to their ancestors.
A lot of the parents are saying, oh, buddy, when the kids come home, they're clapping the clapsticks and they're singing around, and, and it's just really powerful to see that. And, like 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't here,
I believe that it's being passed on now, and that I believe that they're going to be using the culture that they didn't grow up with before. And they were at the right age now to learn their culture, and that dance, that's really good. I enjoy it. Brings tears to my eyes when I see, and if I don't shut up, I'm going to start crying now. Brings tears to my eyes when I see them dancing.
To reconnect to our culture, it's going to have a strong foundation for our people, to walk forward, and hopefully we can start reducing those crime rates, and that sexual abuse and the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, and and start combating our trauma, but we're doing it our way, on country.
But there's been outside help from the Army this year, not only building important infrastructure like roads and community centres, but teaching qualifications and building bonds with the community during their half-year stay.
I was a bit sceptical at the start, government sort of organisation coming in here, what are they doing here? But they have been doing a lot of positive things, you know, even if you are a bit sceptical. The stats about how many people, you know, from the community that were qualifying, you know, getting their qualification, Cert 2, Cert 1 and 2 in business and construction and hospitality. So the real blessing of that is if they can take that over to Goondiwindi or out in the community and actually obtain employment from that, you know, and that's where we're going to start seeing that real change. And yeah, I feel it's been real positive.
Reclaiming country is another important step. The banning of motorised water sport on nearby Boobra Lagoon was a significant cultural breakthrough led by the elders.
People like that in the community were fighting because there were a lot of skiers at the time, you know, going out and desecrating our site and our healing place. And when these things are taking place, it further suppresses our people and our connection to our land, in particular our water, our gali. Our water is very sacred, and it has a lot of healing energy about it. So to have that take place back then, I was living in Boggabilla at the time. I was a teenager. I was around 13 or 14 at the time. I was oblivious to what was happening and how important that was to myself and our people and what our old people were doing at that time. So for those people that have passed on now that have fought in that struggle, it's opened the door for people like myself and, you know, other people to reconnect out there and keep that true essence of what the site was about and what that meant to us as people, so we can move forward, you know, and heal.
Winning the local rugby league competition this year has given the community even more motivation to keep pushing ahead for a better future.
Just all the sad stuff that went through the community this year in 2017, and at the end of the footy season, lifting up that trophy, it just brung pride back into our community, I reckon, and the players themselves.
For many kids, the dream starts right here, the Ewan McGrady Oval right behind me. But it's not just about football, it's about culture too.
Well, I think all the boys, they still do that hunting side of things, so they walk miles and kilometres just to do fishing and chase goannas and you know, collecting emu eggs and all that stuff. So all that cultural stuff still within the boys that's playing footy, and I think footy is just another thing that they love and they enjoy doing, and fitness. Well, you got to be fit to play footy, and that's the main key this year.
But in the end, millions of dollars can't do what tens of thousands of years of culture can do, and it's still alive in the youth of today.
If we pass on, we can say, yeah, we did stand up and have a crack at it, and not just sit back and go, you know, like, well, we really can't change it, but we've got to change our mindset and our attitude, and that's all about reconnecting to our culture.
And that is your APTN National News for this Monday. Stick around for APTN Investigates. That's next. And for news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.